I started the Toolbox project by prototyping a 2-inch triangle with the raised words, "Make something." I modeled the triangle in Fusion 360 and cut the triangle out of a cheap HDPE cutting board with my CNC after first testing to make sure it floated. The size of the letters are tiny and I needed to use a 1/32 inch end mill bit. Because the bit is fragile, I kept the speed at 15 inches per minute and a depth to 0.01 inch per pass. The triangle came out great, but it would make a huge die, so I downsized it to 1.5 inch per side. Next, I cut out 7 more, each with a different maker-related phrase. I beveled the back of each edge of each triangle, and then hot glued them into an octahedron. There are only 3 options for making a solid shape using equilateral triangles: 4 sides, 8, or 20. 8 is all I have room for, so that's what I went with. I didn't just glue the edges together. The whole inside of the die is completely filled with hot glue because I was worried it would leak air into the globe and be too buoyant to shake up properly. The ball is just a DIY snow globe I found on Amazon. I modeled the entire toolbox in Fusion 360 and then used it to create toolpaths for each part. From the end view, you can see that I made the inside of the box smaller than the globe by pushing the walls in, then subtracting the overlap from the insides. I used the CNC to surface both sides of some rough 4/4 white oak, then cut out the main parts with 3D adaptive clearing paths and a 1/4 inch end mill. After I had those done, I decided it needed the name inlaid on the top front. First, I cut out the rectangle, switched back to the 1/32 inch end mill, and cut the negative text into the roof about 0.1 inch deep. Then I needed to flip the piece over, re-zero off the corner, and carve the bevels on the bottom. I cut the text positives 0.15 inch tall from a piece of mahogany. I used a flush trim saw to remove the letters from the block and pushed them into the negative with some glue. Since the letters were taller than the negatives, they stood proud of the surface, allowing me to sand them down to perfectly flush and smooth. I fabricated the handle from 22 gauge steel. It pivots front to back properly and supports the weight of the toolbox. The back panel is attached with magnets. In case I spring a leak, I can access the globe. To make it look like a real toolbox, I routed a thin line around it to simulate a lid and added a decorative latch and hinges. The globe is filled with water and 2 full squirt bottles of yellow food coloring. The die will magically choose one of the 8 answers that makers need to hear. Thanks for watching! I hope you enjoyed seeing how the toolbox was made. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch the presentation to see the toolbox in action. And of course, like and subscribe!